I don't care about the job application. I only care that you are here now, and you are mine.
This is madness. It's destiny.
A journey begins. The autumn morning brought crisp air to the streets of Manhattan as Olivia Bennet stepped out of Grand Central Station. Her heart drummed with nervous excitement. She had journeyed from Boston carrying dreams wrapped in determination and a portfolio filled with her best design work. At 25, she stood ready to take her first real step into the world of corporate design. Sterling Enterprises towered above her, a magnificent structure of glass and steel that reached toward the clouds. Olivia had researched the company thoroughly. They were known for innovative marketing campaigns and cutting-edge design work. The junior graphic designer position seemed perfect for someone with her skills and ambitions. She wore her best professional outfit, a charcoal gray dress with a cream blazer that her mother had helped her pick out. The pearl necklace around her neck had belonged to her grandmother, a small token of courage for this important day. Olivia took a deep breath and walked through the revolving doors into the lobby. The mistake that changed everything. The reception area gleamed with polished marble and contemporary artwork. Everything spoke of success and sophistication. Olivia approached the reception desk where a professional woman greeted her with a polite smile. "Good morning. I'm Olivia Bennet. I have a 9 o'clock interview for the junior graphic designer position," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. The receptionist typed something into her computer, her brow furrowing slightly. "I see your name here, but there seems to be some confusion about the position. Let me contact Human Resources right away." A flutter of worry passed through Olivia's chest. Had she gotten the date wrong? She double-checked her phone, but the confirmation email clearly stated today's date and time. Within minutes, a tall woman with kind eyes and auburn hair approached. She introduced herself as Victoria Hayes, the Director of Human Resources. Her warm smile put Olivia somewhat at ease. "Miss Bennet, I apologize for the confusion. Our scheduling system had a glitch, and the graphic design interviews were accidentally moved to next week. However, we have an immediate opening that might interest you even more." Olivia listened with growing surprise as Victoria explained. The position of executive assistant to the CEO had suddenly become available. The previous assistant had left due to family reasons, and they needed someone immediately. The salary was substantially higher, and the experience would be invaluable for anyone wanting to understand how major corporations operated. "But I don't have executive assistant experience," Olivia protested gently. "I studied design and visual communication." Victoria's smile widened. "Mr. Sterling specifically requested someone with creative thinking skills. He believes that traditional corporate thinking has become too rigid. Your design background might be exactly the fresh perspective he needs." The opportunity seemed both thrilling and terrifying. Olivia had come prepared to discuss color theory and brand identity, not executive schedules and business operations. Yet something inside her whispered that this unexpected turn might lead somewhere extraordinary. "I would be honored to interview for the position," Olivia heard herself saying. Meeting the man behind the empire. The elevator ride to the 35th floor felt like ascending to another world. Victoria briefed her about Nathan Sterling, explaining that at 37, he had transformed his family's modest investment firm into a powerhouse that touched technology, real estate, and sustainable business practices. "Nathan is brilliant but intense," Victoria warned as they walked down a hallway lined with floor-to-ceiling windows. "He has incredibly high standards. 3 assistants have left in the past year, though not because he was unkind. The pace and pressure simply overwhelmed them." They stopped before elegant double doors. Victoria knocked and opened them without waiting for a response. The office took Olivia's breath away. Windows wrapped around 2 walls, offering stunning views of Central Park and the city skyline. The space balanced modern efficiency with classic warmth. Leather chairs faced a commanding desk made of dark wood, and bookshelves lined one wall, filled with volumes on business, philosophy, and surprisingly, art history. Behind the desk sat Nathan Sterling. He was not what Olivia expected. Younger looking than his years, Nathan possessed striking features with dark hair touched with silver at the temples and intense blue eyes that seemed to see everything at once. He wore a navy suit without a tie, the top button of his crisp white shirt undone. His presence filled the room with quiet power. "Mr. Sterling, this is Olivia Bennett," Victoria announced. "She's here about the executive assistant position." Nathan's gaze shifted to Olivia, and she felt as though he could see straight through to her thoughts. He gestured to the chair across from him without speaking. The silence held weight. "Your resume," he said finally. His voice was deep, measured, and commanding. Olivia handed over her portfolio, which contained her resume along with samples of her design work. She watched as he examined the documents with careful attention, his expression revealing nothing. Boston College. Visual Communications and Business. GPA 3.9. He looked up sharply. "No administrative experience whatsoever. Why should I consider you for this position?" The test of truth. The directness of his question demanded honesty. Olivia met his gaze steadily, drawing on reserves of courage she did not know she possessed. "You shouldn't, if you're looking for someone who already knows your systems and procedures," she began. "But if you're looking for someone who can bring fresh thinking to problems, who understands visual communication and how information flows, and who isn't afraid of challenges, then maybe I'm exactly right." Nathan leaned back in his chair, studying her with renewed interest. "Tell me about a time you failed at something important." The question surprised her, but Olivia appreciated its honesty. "Last year, I designed an entire campaign for a local nonprofit. I spent weeks creating something visually stunning. When I presented it, they politely thanked me and never used a single element." "Why?" Nathan asked. "Because I designed what I wanted to create instead of listening to what they actually needed. I learned that brilliance without understanding is just noise. Since then, I always start by listening." Something shifted in Nathan's expression. He asked her several more questions, each one probing deeper into how she thought and solved problems. He described scenarios where his previous assistants had struggled, asking how she would handle them. When he finally stood, signaling the interview's end, Olivia had no idea whether she had impressed him or disappointed him entirely. "Victoria will show you the assistant's workspace and explain the daily responsibilities," Nathan said. "I'll make my decision by this afternoon." As Olivia followed Victoria out of the office, she caught Nathan watching her with an expression she could not quite read. It might have been curiosity, or perhaps something more, the call that changed everything. Olivia sat in a small cafe 3 blocks from Sterling Enterprises, nursing a cup of coffee she barely tasted. Her phone rested on the table beside her, silent and unmoving. 2 hours had passed since the interview, and doubt crept through her mind like shadows at dusk. Perhaps her honesty had been too bold. Maybe Nathan Sterling wanted someone more polished, more experienced. She had probably seemed naive, a small-town girl pretending she could handle the pressures of executive corporate life. When her phone finally rang, she jumped so suddenly that nearby patrons glanced her way. The screen displayed Sterling Enterprises. "Hello, this is Olivia," she answered, trying to keep her voice steady. "Miss Bennett, this is Victoria Hayes. Mr. Sterling would like to see you again. Can you return to the office immediately?" 15 minutes later, Olivia stood once more in Nathan's office. This time, he was standing by the windows, hands in his pockets, gazing out at the city below. He did not turn when she entered. "I've made my decision," he said to the window. "The position is yours if you want it. Salary is $85,000 annually, plus full benefits and performance bonuses. You start Monday morning at 7. Olivia felt her breath catch. The amount was more than she had dared to dream. "Mr. Sterling, I accept. Thank you for this opportunity." He turned then, and she saw something in his expression that had not been there during the interview. Approval, perhaps, mixed with something else she could not name. "Don't thank me yet," he said quietly. "This job will test you in ways you cannot imagine." The first day. Monday morning arrived with rain streaking down the windows of Olivia's small apartment in Queens. She had spent the weekend studying everything she could find about Sterling Enterprises, taking notes until her hand cramped. Nathan Sterling had built his empire on three principles: innovation, integrity, and intensity. She needed to embody all three. She arrived at the office at 6:30, determined to be prepared before Nathan appeared. Victoria met her with a warm smile and a thick folder containing passwords, protocols, and emergency contacts. "The most important thing to remember," Victoria said as they walked through the executive suite, "is that Nathan values efficiency and honesty above everything else. If you make a mistake, tell him immediately. If you don't know something, admit it and find out. What he cannot tolerate is pretense or excuses." Olivia's workspace was positioned just outside Nathan's office, a strategic location that allowed her to monitor who entered and left while managing the constant flow of information. Two computer screens displayed his complex schedule, email systems, and real-time updates from various departments. Nathan arrived at exactly 7 o'clock, carrying a leather briefcase and moving with purposeful energy. He acknowledged Olivia with a brief nod. "Coffee, black, no sugar," he said without stopping. "Conference call with Tokyo in 15 minutes. I need the Fletcher acquisition files and the sustainability report from Environmental Services." Olivia's heart raced as she scrambled to fulfill the requests. She had studied the filing system over the weekend, but finding specific documents under pressure proved more challenging than she anticipated. She located the acquisition files quickly but struggled with the sustainability report. With 2 minutes remaining before the call, she still had not found it. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but she remembered Victoria's advice about honesty. She knocked on Nathan's door and entered when he called out. "Mr. Sterling, I cannot locate the sustainability report. I've checked the Environmental Services folder and the recent reports section. Where else should I look?" He glanced up from his computer, and for a moment she expected frustration. Instead, he simply said, "It's filed under Corporate Responsibility, subsection Green Initiatives. The environmental director changed the classification last week. I should have mentioned that." She found the report and delivered it with 30 seconds to spare. As she closed his door, she heard him begin the conference call, his voice confident and commanding. She had passed her first small test. Discovering the man behind the reputation. The weeks that followed blurred together in a whirlwind of activity. Olivia learned that Nathan Sterling worked with relentless focus, often arriving before dawn and staying long after everyone else had gone home. She matched his schedule, determined to prove she belonged in this position. But she also began to see beyond the demanding exterior. She noticed how he always remembered the names of cleaning staff and security guards, greeting them with genuine warmth. She observed him on calls with international partners, switching effortlessly between languages and always finding common ground even in difficult negotiations. One evening, as they prepared for a major presentation, Olivia discovered something unexpected. Nathan had asked her to organize his reference materials, and among the business documents she found sketches. Detailed, beautiful drawings of buildings and landscapes, signed with his initials. "You draw," she said without thinking, then immediately regretted the intrusion into his privacy. Nathan looked up from his laptop, following her gaze to the sketches in her hands. For a moment, his professional mask slipped, revealing something vulnerable beneath. "I studied architecture before business," he said quietly. "My father became ill during my final year of university. The family company was struggling. I had to choose between my dreams and my responsibilities." "These are beautiful," Olivia said honestly. "You have real talent." "Talent without purpose is just a hobby," Nathan replied, but his tone lacked its usual sharpness. I channel that creativity into building companies instead of buildings. Different kind of architecture. That conversation marked a shift in their relationship. Nathan began asking for her opinions on visual presentations and marketing materials, valuing her design background. She learned to anticipate his needs, often having documents prepared before he requested them. The crisis that brought them closer. 6 weeks into her position, disaster struck. Sterling Enterprises had been negotiating a major partnership with a European technology firm. The deal represented months of work and millions of dollars in potential revenue. On the morning they were scheduled to sign contracts, their European partners discovered that a competitor had leaked false information suggesting Sterling Enterprises had violated environmental regulations. Olivia arrived at 6 to find Nathan already in his office, phone pressed to his ear, his expression darker than she had ever seen. When he ended the call, he looked up at her with exhaustion evident in his eyes. "The Helsinki deal is falling apart," he said bluntly. "Someone started a rumor that we dumped chemicals in a protected waterway near our New Jersey facility. It's completely false, but the damage is done. Our partners are getting pressure from environmental groups. What do you need from me?" Olivia asked immediately. For the next 18 hours, they worked together without stopping. Olivia coordinated with the legal team, environmental services, and public relations while Nathan handled calls with the European partners. She drafted statements, organized evidence, and managed the crisis communication with an efficiency that surprised even herself. At midnight, they sat in his office surrounded by empty coffee cups and scattered documents. Nathan had removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves. His usually perfect hair was disheveled from running his hands through it. "We're going to lose this deal," he said quietly. "Even with all the evidence proving our innocence, the damage to our reputation will take months to repair." Olivia studied the situation from a different angle, her design training kicking in. What if we don't just defend ourselves? What if we go on the offense? She outlined a strategy. Instead of simply denying the accusations, they would launch a comprehensive transparency initiative, opening their facilities to independent environmental auditors and publishing real-time environmental data for all their operations. They would turn the false accusation into an opportunity to set new industry standards. Nathan listened with growing interest. That's bold. And expensive. And exactly the kind of innovative thinking that could work. They spent the next 3 hours developing the plan. When they finally presented it to the European partners the following morning, the response was overwhelmingly positive. Not only did the deal proceed, but Sterling Enterprises gained recognition as an environmental leader. As they left the conference room after the final signatures, Nathan turned to Olivia. "You saved this company millions today. More importantly, you saw possibilities where I only saw problems. That's rare." "I learned from watching you," Olivia replied. "You taught me that challenges are just opportunities wearing disguises." For the first time since they met, Nathan Sterling smiled at her. Not the polite professional smile he used in meetings, but a genuine expression of warmth and appreciation. In that moment, something unspoken passed between them, a recognition that their relationship had evolved beyond employer and employee into something deeper and more complex. Unexpected feelings. The weeks following the Helsinki crisis brought subtle changes. Nathan began including Olivia in strategy meetings, valuing her perspective on creative solutions. They often worked late together, conversations shifting from business to personal topics during quiet moments. Olivia learned that Nathan had sacrificed much to save his family's company. He had set aside his architectural dreams, ended a long-term relationship that could not withstand the pressures of his responsibilities, and spent years building something meaningful from the ruins of near bankruptcy. She shared her own story too. Growing up in a working-class Boston neighborhood, watching her parents struggle to make ends meet, and promising herself that she would build a life of security and purpose. Her design dreams had been her escape, her way of creating beauty in a world that often felt harsh. One rainy November evening, as they reviewed quarterly reports, Nathan suddenly asked, "Do you ever regret taking this job instead of pursuing design?" Olivia considered the question carefully. "I thought I would. But I've discovered something unexpected. Helping you build this company, seeing the impact we have on thousands of employees and communities, that's creative work too. Just a different canvas." Nathan met her eyes, and the intensity in his gaze made her heart skip. "You're not what I expected, Olivia Bennett." "Neither are you, Nathan Sterling," she replied softly. The air between them felt charged with possibility, with the recognition that something profound was beginning to bloom. Neither of them acknowledged it aloud, but both felt the shift, like the first movement of tectonic plates before an earthquake reshapes the landscape. As Olivia gathered her things to leave that evening, she realized that she had stopped thinking of this as just a job weeks ago. She had found something she had not been seeking, something that both thrilled and terrified her in equal measure. The walls begin to crumble. December arrived with the first snowfall of the season, transforming Manhattan into a winter wonderland. Sterling Enterprises prepared for the annual holiday gala, an event that brought together investors, partners, and industry leaders. As Nathan's executive assistant, Olivia found herself deeply involved in the planning, coordinating with event managers and reviewing every detail. The gala was scheduled for a Friday evening at the Plaza Hotel. Olivia had purchased a simple but elegant navy dress for the occasion, telling herself it was just another work event. Yet as she prepared that evening, applying makeup with more care than usual, she could not deny the flutter of anticipation in her chest. When she arrived at the plaza, the ballroom took her breath away. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables decorated with white roses and silver accents. The city's most influential people mingled with champagne glasses, their laughter and conversation filling the elegant space. Nathan stood near the entrance greeting guests. He wore a tailored black tuxedo that made him look like he belonged on a movie screen rather than in a boardroom. When he saw Olivia, something flickered across his expression. His usual composed demeanor faltered for just a moment. "You look beautiful," he said quietly, the words so unexpected that Olivia felt warmth rise to her cheeks. "Thank you," she managed. "The event is coming together perfectly." Throughout the evening, Olivia worked seamlessly, ensuring everything ran smoothly. But she remained constantly aware of Nathan's presence across the room. Several times she caught him watching her, and each time their eyes met, the connection between them seemed to intensify. During dinner, Nathan was seated at the head table with board members and major investors. Olivia sat with Victoria and other senior staff, yet she felt Nathan's gaze find her repeatedly. The speeches and presentations passed in a blur of words she barely registered. After the formal program concluded and dancing began, Olivia stepped out onto the terrace for fresh air. The cold December wind felt refreshing against her flushed skin. She gazed at the twinkling lights of Central Park, trying to make sense of the emotions swirling inside her. Running away from the party? Nathan's voice came from behind her. She turned to find him standing in the doorway, his jacket unbuttoned, looking more relaxed than she had ever seen him. Just needed a moment to breathe. Events like this can be overwhelming. He joined her at the railing, standing close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him despite the winter chill. "You've done an exceptional job tonight. With everything, actually. These past few months, you've exceeded every expectation I had." "I've learned from an excellent teacher," Olivia replied. Nathan turned to face her fully, and the intensity in his eyes made her pulse quicken. "Olivia, I need to tell you something. These past months working with you have been different from anything I've experienced. You challenge me, inspire me, make me remember why I fell in love with building things in the first place." Her breath caught. The air between them felt electric, charged with possibilities that both thrilled and frightened her. "Nathan, She began, but he gently placed a finger against her lips. "Let me finish. I know the complications. The professional boundaries, the power dynamics, all the logical reasons why this is complicated. But I cannot continue pretending that what I feel for you is purely professional. You've become essential to me in ways that have nothing to do with business. Olivia's heart hammered against her ribs. Every rational part of her mind screamed warnings about workplace relationships and the risks involved. Yet standing here with Nathan, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes, feeling the truth of her own emotions, rationality seemed less important than honesty. I feel it too, she whispered. I've tried to ignore it, to tell myself it's just admiration or professional respect. But it's more than that. So much more. Nathan reached up, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. His touch sent shivers through her that had nothing to do with the cold. I don't want to pressure you. Your career, your position, everything you've worked for matters. We can keep this professional if that's what you need. Olivia looked into his eyes and saw not the demanding CEO who intimidated everyone around him, but the man who drew beautiful sketches in his spare time, who remembered the names of cleaning staff, who had sacrificed his dreams to save his family. She saw someone who had been alone for so long that he had forgotten what connection felt like. I don't want to keep it professional, she said softly. I want to see where this leads, complications and all. Nathan smiled then, a genuine expression of joy that transformed his entire face. He cupped her cheek gently, giving her every opportunity to pull away. When she leaned into his touch instead, he kissed her with a tenderness that contrasted beautifully with his usual intensity. The kiss felt like coming home and embarking on an adventure simultaneously. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless, gazing at each other with wonder at this new territory they had entered. The revelation that tests everything. The weeks following the gala were both wonderful and challenging. Nathan and Olivia navigated their new relationship carefully, keeping it private while they figured out what it meant. At work, they maintained professional boundaries, but the stolen glances and subtle touches spoke volumes to anyone paying attention. Victoria noticed, of course. She pulled Olivia aside one afternoon with concern evident on her face. I need to talk to you about something delicate, Victoria began. I've observed the change between you and Nathan. I'm not judging, but I need you to understand something about his past. Olivia's stomach tightened with apprehension. What do you mean? Victoria sighed, choosing her words carefully. 5 years ago, Nathan was engaged to a woman named Catherine Winters. She came from a prominent family, and everyone expected them to marry. 2 weeks before the wedding, Catherine left him. She told him she couldn't handle being married to his ambition, that she would always come second to the company. The revelation hit Olivia like a physical blow. He never mentioned that. Nathan doesn't talk about it, but it changed him. He built walls around his heart, threw himself into work completely. You're the first person since Catherine that he's allowed close. I'm telling you this because you need to understand what you're walking into. Loving Nathan Sterling means accepting that his work will always be part of who he is. That evening, Olivia confronted Nathan in his office after everyone else had left. Why didn't you tell me about Catherine? Nathan's expression darkened. He set down the document he had been reviewing and met her gaze steadily. Victoria told you. She's worried about both of us, Olivia said. Nathan, I deserve to know about the things that shaped you. Especially if we're building something real together. He was silent for a long moment, then gestured for her to sit. He moved from behind his desk to sit beside her, a gesture of openness. Catherine and I met in college. We dated for 6 years before I proposed. She knew what my life was like, the demands of running this company. Or I thought she did. He paused, pain flickering across his face. 2 weeks before our wedding, she came to me and said she couldn't do it. That watching me choose work over her repeatedly had shown her what marriage would be like. She wanted someone who would put her first, always. Were you willing to change? Olivia asked gently. Nathan shook his head. I couldn't. This company employed 3,000 people at that time. Their families depended on the decisions I made. I couldn't put one person's happiness above all of theirs, no matter how much I loved her. Catherine deserved someone who could give her that kind of devotion. I wasn't that person. Olivia reached out and took his hand. I'm not Catherine. I understand what this company means to you because I've seen the impact you have. You're not just building wealth. You're creating opportunities, supporting communities, pushing for environmental responsibility. That's not something to resent. That's something to admire. Nathan looked at her with such intensity that it felt like he could see into her soul. You mean that? I do. But I need you to promise me something. Promise that you'll let me in, that you won't build walls to protect yourself from being hurt again. Real love requires vulnerability from both people. He pulled her close, holding her as though she might disappear if he let go. I promise. No walls, no holding back. You've already broken through defenses I didn't even realize I still had. A future neither expected. Spring arrived, bringing renewal to the city and to their relationship. Nathan and Olivia no longer hid their connection. The board of directors raised eyebrows initially, but Nathan's unwavering confidence in Olivia and her continued excellent performance silenced critics. Olivia discovered that loving Nathan Sterling meant embracing both his intensity and his tenderness. He challenged her professionally, pushing her to think bigger and bolder. But he also showed her gentleness she had not expected, surprising her with thoughtful gestures that demonstrated how deeply he paid attention to her needs and dreams. One Saturday morning in May, Nathan took Olivia to a construction site in Brooklyn. She had no idea why until they stood before the skeleton of a building rising against the spring sky. I bought this property 3 months ago, Nathan explained. It's going to be a community center with affordable housing above it. Art studios, classroom space, technology labs for local kids. I want you to oversee the design. Olivia stared at him in shock. Nathan, I'm your assistant, not a designer. You're brilliant at both. And it's time you stopped hiding your creative talents behind administrative work. I'm creating a new position for you, Director of Creative Development. You'll split your time between strategic work with me and leading design initiatives for projects that matter. Tears filled Olivia's eyes. You're doing this for me. I'm doing this for us, Nathan corrected gently. I told you I studied architecture because I wanted to build things that mattered. I gave that up to save my family's company, but I don't have to give up everything. We can build things together, Olivia. Beautiful, meaningful things that blend your creativity with my business vision. She threw her arms around him, overcome with emotion. This man who had seemed so cold and untouchable when they first met had revealed depths of warmth and generosity she was still discovering. I love you, she whispered against his chest. I didn't plan to. I came to New York looking for a job, not for you. But somehow destiny had different plans. Nathan pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. I love you too. More than I thought possible. You walked into my office 6 months ago completely unprepared for the position I was offering, and you've exceeded every hope I had. Not just as an assistant, but as a partner in every sense of the word. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Olivia's breath caught as he opened it to reveal a stunning diamond ring with a unique design that looked like architectural blueprints rendered in precious metal and stone. I had this custom made, Nathan said, his voice thick with emotion. The design incorporates elements from both architecture and graphic design, representing how our different talents complement each other. Olivia Bennett, will you marry me? Will you build this extraordinary life with me? Through tears of joy, Olivia nodded. Yes. 1,000 times yes. As Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her with all the passion and tenderness he possessed, Olivia thought about the journey that had brought her here. She had applied for a simple design job, expecting nothing more than an entry point into the corporate world. Instead, destiny had given her something infinitely more valuable. She had found not just career success, but purpose. Not just professional respect, but genuine love. Not just a position, but a partnership that would allow both of them to become more than they could have been alone. The construction site bustled with activity around them, workers building the framework of something new and meaningful. It seemed like the perfect metaphor for their relationship. They were building something together, carefully and deliberately, with both strength and beauty woven into every decision. Epilogue: Building dreams together. 1 year later, Olivia stood in the completed community center, watching children explore the art studios and technology labs. The space had exceeded her design vision, blending functionality with aesthetic beauty in ways that made her heart swell with pride. Nathan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. His wedding ring caught the light, matching the one she wore on her own hand. They had married in a simple ceremony 6 months earlier, surrounded by close friends and family. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. "About how lost I would have been if that scheduling mix-up hadn't happened. I was so focused on one specific path that I couldn't see all the other possibilities waiting for me." "Sometimes the best things in life are the ones we never planned for," Nathan replied. "I spent years thinking I had to choose between personal happiness and professional success. You showed me I could have both." Olivia turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had become her husband, her partner, and her greatest adventure. "We showed each other. That's what love does. It expands what we think is possible." As they stood together in the space they had created, surrounded by the evidence of what they could build when they combined their talents and dreams, Olivia felt profound gratitude. She had come to New York seeking opportunity. She had found destiny instead. And it was more beautiful than anything she could have imagined. The end.